Have you thought about living in an RV full time, especially stationary? Are you intrigued with the idea of living tiny, having a minimalistic lifestyle? Today, I'm going to talk about 5 things you need to consider before living stationary in an RV full time.
Whether you are in your retirement years, heading there, or nowhere close, we have great things to share with all stationary RVers, and many of our tips work for nomad RVers as well. So stay tuned for this week's amazing tips, tricks, and tested products.
So first of all, let's talk about the size of your RV home that you're considering. Now, I highly recommend getting one just as large as you possibly can. If you have kiddos to consider, this is even going to be more important. Space is a valued commodity in an RV, and everyone needs to have a bit of their own personal space, as well as the ability to really move around, especially if you live in colder climates and you can't get out much during the winter. Now, while we don't have young children living in our home, we can still see a real difference in Izzy, our 3-year-old multi-poo, especially during the early spring. You know, she doesn't get out a lot during the winter. We have all that snow and whatnot. And when most areas are starting to see their snow melt off, we get our snowiest seasons in February, March, and April. There are times that Izzy just goes on the zoomies and she'll run from one end of the house to the other end of the house just to try to get some of that energy out. She's just itching to get outside and not to be contained in the RV. And I know kids and some of us adults are like that too. Another reason you might want to consider a larger rig is because it will allow you to divide your home in zones. If you plan to live alone, you can get away with using your bed as a couch or a work table or even an eating space. However, if there's 2 or more of you, you might want to have designated spaces for these activities. Talking about what each zone will be used for before purchasing the RV will help you both visualize how the space will be used and minimize assumptions and aggravations. Since our kitchen table was removed to allow me to have room for a desk, we use the bar at our kitchen sink as our eating area. I even put placemats there when we eat just to designate this as an eating space versus the kitchen sink. Now, we may snack on the couch a bit, but our main meals are eaten at the kitchen bar. This allows everything to be contained in the kitchen that we use for our meals, and it minimizes the amount of crumbs and things that could attract things like mice, especially when they fall down into the cracks of the couch or get left on the living room carpet. So give yourself the luxury of space as much as you can afford. Now, number 2 is the age of the RV home that you will be purchasing. Now, an RV home should not be considered your forever home. It's a home for a season. Therefore, it's important to consider how long you plan to live in a specific rig before you purchase it. Now, it can be very rewarding to purchase an older RV and renovate it. However, it's essential that you have the home inspected to make sure it's structurally sound, that there's no water damage, and all of that's taken care of before you purchase it, or you reduce the price, understanding you're going to have to incur the cost and the skill and the labor to upgrade. The older the home is, the more likely there will be water damage and there will be some structural damage or concerns you'll need to think about. If you want to live in it for several years, then you need the very best bones in the structure of the RV that you can purchase. And you want to make sure that it is weatherproofed for the specific geographical region that you live in. It's also wise to understand there's a difference between redecorating and renovation. Now, you can purchase a can of paint. You can find treasures at the thrift store. You can get inexpensive decor from like the Dollar Tree. Check out this YouTube from the DIY Mommy, how she renovated her RV. Beautiful decorating ideas. No one does better renovations, however, than RV Dogs and Wine. And I put their information links below. And if you want to see a massive multi-part renovation, check out Javi and Jo on the go. I put their link below as well. But renovating takes money, it takes knowledge, and it takes a lot of sweat equity. Be sure you have a good supply of all of these before you take on such an extensive project. If you do plan on living in your RV for an extended period of time, then you might consider purchasing a newer one or having one built with the specific needs for your geographical area. When we had ours built, we added things like dual pane windows. We wanted to ensure there was ample heaters in the belly of the rig to minimize any kind of pipe freezing, and that we had a sufficient cooling system for our warmer summers. We wanted one that had a larger fridge, that had ample space on both sides of the beds for our necessities, and one that had a shower that wasn't claustrophobic. If this is going to be your home for some time to come, the longer you plan to live in your home, the more important it is to find one that has all the wants possible that you can find. Identify your non-negotiables and don't waver for them when you're looking for your next RV. You'll be much happier in your home if you do. So where are you going to put your RV? Well, if your state or municipality is RV friendly, you are truly blessed. There are too many old and outdated stigmas regarding the choice of living in an RV. I think a great number of us would rather have our own land and place our RV on it. And there's also a growing desire for more RV resorts and RV parks and smaller RV communities even. However, unfortunately, there's just as much resistance from local sticks and bricks homeowners and government agencies to ban what they're calling bonsai villages. Hopefully this will change as more full-time RVers are afforded this choice of lifestyle, and as we do everything in our power to change that stigma from trailer trash to an alternative living style by the care and upkeep of our RV home. Now, living in an RV park brings its own challenges. Many have age restrictions and rules and regulations that enhance as well as challenge the comfort of our living. While the rules are good for all the tenants in the park, the expectations, the limitations, who and how they are enforced greatly impacts the joy of your everyday living environment. Number 4 is the cost of maintaining your RV home. Now, living in an RV might be a little bit more expensive than some people expected. It was a little shocker for me. If you live on your own land and you've already paid for it, that can certainly minimize things. However, if you just purchased the land, if you are developing things like bringing in water, bringing in sewer, bringing in the electricity, and even internet can be very costly. RV parks usually include the water in your rental for the space. However, your propane and your electricity and your internet costs are all billed to you separately. Depending on your climate and how well your RV is insulated, the cost for each of these can be much higher than you expected. Our first electric bill was a real shocker. Now here's a promise. Something will go wrong. Something will break. The compressor in our refrigerator went out, and it was a huge, long, costly repair. It took months to get everything going again. And lucky for us, because we have a toy hauler, we have a freezer in there, and that certainly helped. But we lived out of coolers and had to purchase ice for months. And of course, we have to store these. And we're not allowed to wash our home in the RV park we reside at. But we are able to hire a company to come in and do a pressure wash for us on an annual basis to keep the exterior maintained and looking nice. Bob inspects our roof every spring and every fall to look for cracks, deterioration of any kind of sealants. And in the summer, he fills all these and recoats the roof to make sure we don't have any water damage during the next winter season. The 5th consideration is all about weather. The newer your RV, the greater chance your home will have a higher amount of weatherization installation included in the build. If you're considering an older RV, then you'll most likely need to update your R values, check for heat and air leaks, and provide auxiliary systems like space heaters to ensure the comfort of your RV home. Living in a colder climate means making sure you have things like heaters and heated hoses to keep pipes from freezing. You want insulation in your windows. You want to minimize the impact of freezing weather on your refrigerator. That was part of our costly mistake. And you want to make sure you have sufficient covering on your floor to ensure warmth and comfort throughout your home. Depending on where you live, you may need more cooling in the summer. That can also add the need to maintain your air conditioning system and ensuring your fridge doesn't become overheated. So those are 5 good things to consider before going out and looking for your RV. But what other thoughts and questions might you have as you consider either living full-time stationary, or maybe you're in the market for purchasing your next RV? You like this style, but that RV season is over and it's time for a new one. Share your thoughts in the comments below. You're really going to help a newbie, and you're going to support your fellow stationary RVers in making the very best decision they can on their next RV.
Hey, thanks for tuning in today. We're so glad you came to visit, and we'll see you next week. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We so appreciate your support.